Asking, is this fury of the faithful or organized outrage, an anger display or a call to violence, and the effects that it has had, and the many big questions on 5 Live at 5 p.m.
Presented by Berger Easy Clean. No dag, no dhabba, only beautiful walls. In association with Sensodyne Daily Sensitivity Protection. LIC हर पल आपके साथ. Proves that profit issue isn't over. After global anger, local fury. Muslim Friday fury on full display. Jumma jolt sends national shockwave. Demanding more than Nupur's sacking. Pan City pandemonium over profit.
And what I have in my hands, ladies and gentlemen, is a viral picture of a poster that was clicked and shared over the last few days from across mosques and areas on WhatsApp, on social media, that the Delhi police believes is what rallied the huge crowds in cities across the country. The huge crowds you saw today is apparently thanks to this message or messages of a similar kind. It was this kind of message that mobilized the huge crowds, asking them to collect in large numbers after Friday prayers. It's this particular message that was found in Delhi, and messages very similar to this were apparently found in different parts of the country, and at least in some small way explains the huge numbers that suddenly collected just after the Friday prayers. Was it organized outrage or was it spontaneous show of anger by the Muslim community? There are many questions, and it came out of nowhere. The question we'll be asking also is, was there a failure of intelligence? Did no one see this coming? Is there latent anger, or is this a toolkit, organized outrage to manipulate a certain community? I'm Shiv Aroor. Thanks for joining me. We're going to show you those images. The headlines first. Two weeks after Nupur Sharma protest, pan-India fury among the Muslim community. After Friday prayers, these images from different parts of the country. A policeman has been injured in violence in Ranchi amid stone pelting, lathi charge, and an escalation in the aggression shown by the crowds in certain parts of India. These images from Ranchi today. Were the protests organized or were they spontaneous? They came out of nowhere, but India today has possible evidence that this had the makings of an organized call to anger and protest. Yogi Adityanath cracks the whip because of the protests that have taken place in different parts of his state, from Prayagraj to Lucknow to elsewhere. He's cracked the whip and said that those responsible will pay the price. Is there a popular Front of India link to the violence, just like in Kanpur? Is the PFI also behind the sudden flare-up in post-Jumma violence in different parts of the country? And the latest images of violence and protests taking place are from Chikmagalur in Karnataka. Remember, this is at least the 14th or 15th location in the country where protests are being seen. It has become a truly pan-India phenomenon. These latest images of protests now in from Karnataka's Chikmagalur, where these protests have erupted. Elsewhere in Karnataka, from Belagavi to Bengaluru, protests have taken place, and the Prophet remark 2 weeks later, proving once again that it has lost none of its potency. It has triggered huge, big crowd protests in different parts of the country. These latest images that have come in from Chikmagalur in Karnataka. Chikmagalur, Karnataka are the latest in a series of relentless images coming in from different parts of the country. From Ranchi to Delhi to Hyderabad to Kolkata to Lucknow to Saharanpur to Belagavi to Ranchi to elsewhere, and now Chikmagalur in Karnataka. We'll have a ground report for you in just a few minutes from now. But I want to show you once again what these protests are all about. These are SDPI protests that have taken place in Chikmagalur, but these are the images that we're getting from different parts of the country at this point of time. Prayagraj, Uttar Pradesh, Ranchi in Jharkhand, Moradabad in UP, Deoband in UP, Solapur in Maharashtra. This is the situation, and we've only shown you a very small part of it. There is open violence and stone pelting in other parts of the country. We've mixed the audio from all of these feeds to show you what this actually sounds like in different parts of the country. Only 5 images here, but there are at least 200 images from different parts of the country, and you will see all of them here over the next hour here on India Today. Delhi, Moradabad, Prayagraj, Kolkata, Kanpur, Saharanpur, Hyderabad, different parts of Karnataka, different parts of Maharashtra, many parts of Uttar Pradesh. All of these coming in 2 weeks after comments about the Prophet that were made by BJP spokesperson Nupur Sharma on a TV debate. After Friday prayers, these are the images from different parts of the country. Show you where the protests are happening at this point of time. It's a map, and let's just show you how this chain reaction has escalated and spread. Take a look at where it actually began. The first protests were seen in Shopia in Jammu and Kashmir. Let's keep moving. Then we saw it in the national capital, and then it spread to different other parts of the country. UP's capital, Lucknow, to Prayagraj, different parts of Uttar Pradesh, including in Deoband. You've seen it in Saharanpur as well. And that's what the national map really looks like. I'm going to let this map move to show you how different parts of the country are seeing these protests. Let's cut back to the visuals now and go straight to India Today's Ashish, who's with us live from Hyderabad. Ashish, what's the situation like over there? We saw huge crowds in Hyderabad as well.
Yes, Shiv, you're absolutely right. In fact, we reported from the ground zero just after Friday prayer at historic Makkah Masjid adjacent to Charminar. Protests erupted. Soon after the protest, senior police officials of Hyderabad police, they rushed to the location. They tried pacifying the crowd, and after a few efforts, the crowd was dispersed. But it was not at Makkah Masjid at Charminar, but a few kilometers away from Charminar. It was at Ajizia Mosque, outside Ajizia Mosque in Mehendipatnam, where police had to use a slight force. Police used a slight force there to disperse the crowd. Apart from Mehendipatnam, several other areas of the city witnessed a spontaneous protest. All the protesters are only demanded, and they were demanding the immediate arrest of two sacked BJP leaders, BJP spokesperson Nupur Sharma, as well as another person. So clearly, protests erupted, protests escalated. Police used slight forces at few locations, but now city is peaceful.
Let's go across to Suryagni, joining us live from Kolkata. Suryagni, what's the situation in Kolkata? There were big protests there as well.
Kolkata as well. There was the protest happened at Kolkata's Park Circus area. A huge turnout happened. Taking cue from yesterday's events where the national highways was blocked for almost 11 hours. The West Bengal police and the Kolkata police made it sure that any protest that happens should happen in a very peaceful manner. There was a huge deployment of Kolkata police, and thankfully, when it comes to Kolkata, the situation was very much in control. But certain parts of Howrah did see violent protest where tires were burned, but thankfully nothing like what we saw yesterday happened today. The national highway, we are still on it. It's still open. There is no blockage as of now. There have been reports of certain untoward incidents, but nothing like yesterday that where the entire highway was entire national highway was blocked for almost 11 hours. Thankfully, the Kolkata police and West Bengal police took a huge cue from yesterday, and they were ready to make sure that the situation remains under control. And secondly, and most importantly, any place where there was a blockage, the West Bengal police made sure that no ruckus would be entertained, and they made sure with maybe through lathi charge or tear shells that the roads should be clear and the law and order situation should be in normalcy. Back to you, Shiv.
Abhishek Mishra is live with us from Lucknow. Abhishek, what's the situation there? Yogi Adityanath has, cracked the whip on those indulging in violence in different parts of Uttar Pradesh as part of these protests. What's the situation in Lucknow?
Well, absolutely, and CM Yogi Adityanath has given clear indications and instructions to make sure that now the situation should be under control, and all these places where such incidents had occurred, strong orders have been given to take the strict necessary action. And as far as what happened in Prayagraj, the ADG zone has said that they will soon be taking the charge, and they will be getting everyone under the custody who has done this act there after the namaz and how the stone planting had happened, that on the police force. So that is one thing. But the situation we have seen also not only just in Prayagraj but in Muradabad, in Lucknow also, and Hathras, other places where such protests were happening. It went beyond the protest, stone planting, and the kind of situation that emerged is a clear indication that the government and at the same time administration has to take some major steps as far as maintaining the law and order situation is concerned. But as of now, the instructions have been given and the monitoring has been done from the Home Department so that there could be a proper situation of peace. But right now, the police force is there and they are trying to manage the situation, and strong instructions have been given by CM Adityanath to take strict action against all these miscreants who have done this after the namaz and all that damage which has been done. Yes.
Stay with me, Abhishek. I also want to go to Aishwarya, who's joining us from Jama Masjid in Delhi. It was actually the second site that saw these protests break out earlier today. What's the current situation, Aishwarya? Imam Bukhari of Jama Masjid had said, kind of surprisingly distanced himself from all of these protests, but that was among the most visible large protests that broke out earlier today. What's the current situation, Aishwarya?
Well, Shiv, let me start by showing you all the visuals. I'm standing on the steps of Jama Masjid, right at gate number 1. We did see in the morning there was very heavy police deployment. However, now we are seeing the police personnel right outside gate 1. The police deployment has decreased. The police feels that now the situation is largely under control. However, we are seeing large number of people still coming and visiting Jama Masjid. In fact, you rightly said, Shiv, that the Imam has said that they don't recognize the people who took part. And this is what the locals here are also saying. They don't know the people. They are not locals. They don't know who were the people who started sloganeering. However, the police chowki is right in front of gate number 1. So the police is keeping a very close eye. And in case they feel that the tension will simmer more, we will see heavy deployment. Barricades, however, have been put up, Shiv. And police personnel are still here. They are keeping a check on the number of people there. The police bus you will be able to see right outside gate 1. The situation, Shiv, at the moment, largely under control. Back to you.
Stay with me. I want to go to Tejshri, who's also at the Jama Masjid in Delhi. Tejshri, we've just heard from the outside. What are you seeing where you are?
Shiv, I'm standing right inside the Jama Masjid where this entire incident took place. Through visuals, I would like to tell you one by one that what is the situation over here at 5:15 p.m. because Azan, we'll be hearing Azan. We are hearing the voice of Azan as of now, and that is why people are gathering over here. And I would like to show the visuals that what visuals we can see over here. So these are the pictures from where the protest took place. And see, the crowd is gathered over there also. People are gathered over there. The police is trying to just, disperse the crowd. When we had a word with few people over there, they said that we were offering the namaz and we were not knowing that who these people are. We were offering the namaz for around 60 minutes. So in this time of 60 minutes, what happened, we actually don't know, because these were those people who came from outside.
I can hear you. Okay, the audio is, we've just lost that audio link. Obviously, there's a big crowd there, so we'll try and re-establish that link with Tejshri. She's inside the Jama Masjid. This is what that image looked like from Tejshri's location just a few hours ago. This is what it looked like when it all began. Things have calmed down a little bit now, but 2 weeks after comments by a BJP spokesperson, this is what different parts of India currently look like. The last 3 hours have been described by situations that look like this. Huge crowds, stone pelting, lathi charge, injuries to many, effigies burnt, arson, and an uncontrollable protest intensity in different parts of the country. This is what things are looking like. In Ranchi, things have been particularly bad. Property has been set on fire. There's been a great deal of stone pelting in that particular area. As you can see, vehicles have been damaged. There have been injuries to some policemen. There has been lathi charge on certain individuals as well. One comment has triggered a truly epic show of protest in different parts of the country. The Muslim community has come out onto the streets after Friday prayers to show a great deal of anger and register protest. There are many questions over whether this was an organized protest. It is suggested by many that this was spontaneous, that there was latent anger that has now manifested in all of these protests in different parts of the country. But what explains the violence that has taken place? Because any suggestion that this was largely a peaceful protest has been belied by images of stone pelting taking place, of vehicles being torched in some areas, property being damaged in others, barricades being broken in some, and rampaging and rioting practically being indulged in by certain elements who were part of these protests. I want to go across now. I want to bring in some opinion makers and observers on this story. Monica Verma is an analyst and strategic affairs expert. We also have with us Bilal Khan is a political analyst as well. Monica, I want to quickly come to you first. What do you think of this? You know, the protests have not been largely peaceful. You know, there were suggestions initially when the initial reactions came in that these are legitimate protests. Protests are absolutely fine in this country, but look at the violence. There's been arson. There's been bloodletting in Ranchi. There's been a lot of property damage. I'm holding in my hand, as a matter of fact, this WhatsApp message and a poster that's gone viral that appears to be, the Delhi police appears to be investigating this image as having been the sort of call to protest, the message responsible for collecting people in such large numbers, at least in Delhi and certain other places. Monica, what do you think? Was this, you know, the fury of the faithful or organized outrage?
I think I'll absolutely, you know, without any doubt, term it as an organized outrage. In fact, not just an organized outrage, but I think, you know, we've seen similar visuals on our television sets just a few days ago during the Ram Navami processions and the Hanuman Jayanti processions, that how, you know, various kinds of violence took place all across the country during various processions being taken out in front of the mosques. And at that time, liberals, the so-called liberals of our country, justified it with a provocation theory that, you know, these processions were trying to provoke the Muslim community, and which is why they suddenly, I would like to emphasize the word suddenly, this is the word that they use, that they suddenly started stone pelting. What I don't understand, that how do you get so many people at the same time? You know, such timed acts with so many stones, you know, cannot happen just overnight. And obviously, you know, after the investigating agencies took over, we actually found that many Islamist radical organizations were indeed responsible for orchestrating such kind of attacks. And at that time, it was PFI. So I don't even, you know, have a doubt over these being organized, because, you know, suddenly every city, in fact, you know, your own correspondent, I think her name is Tejri, she was at Jama Masjid and she herself said, I just heard her telling that, you know, all of this was taking place, but the usual people who come to Jama Masjid to pray were themselves surprised because certain people have come there for the first time. As a usual Muslim who is peaceful and is going there to pray, if I find someone else who hasn't come there to pray ever, then obviously that statement by that human being should be raising suspicions that who those people were. So is there an outside hand? And, you know, in fact, in New Delhi also, during the Ram Navami procession, I think, or it was the Hanuman Jayanti procession, I think the Rohingya community
so you're basically
was involved.
You're basically suggesting, you didn't use the word, but you're basically suggesting that this is some kind of a toolkit. I also want to bring in my friend Syed Asad Abbas from Bengaluru. He's also been watching what's been happening over the last few hours, but quickly want to bring in a reaction from Bilal Khan on this. Bilal, आपने सुना कि मोनिका ने क्या बताया? उनका कहना है कि ये एक spontaneous protest बिल्कुल नहीं था, ये एक organized protest था, toolkit जारी किया है इस सारे प्रोटेस्ट में, और ये काफ़ी ऑर्गेनाइज्ड चीज़ था, ये ऑर्गेनिक और स्पॉन्टेनियस नहीं था. आपका क्या रिएक्शन है इस पर?
मेरा रिएक्शन यही है, सबसे पहले तो मैं यही कहना चाहूँगा जितने मेरे मुस्लिम ब्रदर्स हैं कि मैं सब लोग पीस और मेंटेन करके रखें पीस को। ये जस्टिफाई, वायलेंस बिल्कुल भी जस्टिफाई नहीं हो सकता किसी भी तरीके से, चाहे वो किसी भी कम्युनिटी से ताल्लुक़ रखने वाला हो, हिंदू हो, मुस्लिम हो, सिख हो, ईसाई हो। जिस तरीके से आज इस माहौल को बनाया जा रहा है, दिल्ली पुलिस को भी सबसे पहले ये सोचना चाहिए कि पूरे देश के अंदर माहौल ख़राब करने की जो कोशिश की जा रही है, उससे अच्छा पहले ये है नुपुर शर्मा और नवीन जिंदल को अरेस्ट करके जेल भेज दिया जाए। ये जो माहौल मचा हुआ है हमारे प्रॉफिट के बारे में, जो इस तरीके से ये इस वर्ड का इस्तेमाल किया गया है, गुस्ताखी की गई है, उसको जस्टिफाइड नहीं किया जा सकता किसी तरीके से। जो धाराएं उनके ऊपर सेक्शन लगाए गए हैं उसके बिहाफ पे दिल्ली पुलिस उनको अरेस्ट कर सकती है, लेकिन नहीं कर रही, क्योंकि कहीं ना कहीं गवर्नमेंट का दबाव है। वो चाहते हैं कि इस तरीके से यहाँ पर जुमे की नमाज के बाद सारे लोग इकट्ठा हों और ये सब चीज़ें चलती रहें। अगर दिल्ली पुलिस और मिनिस्ट्रीज पे एक्शन लेकर ये नरेंद्र हमारे देश के प्रधानमंत्री कहें कि भाई जल्दी से जल्दी इसको निपटाया जाए, जिन लोगों को लेकर अब बवाल हो रहा है, चाहे हमारे हिंदुस्तान के अंदर हो या दूसरी हमारे और कंट्रीज़ के अंदर हो, इसी को लेकर बवाल चल रहा है ना। नबी के बारे में जो गुस्ताखी, नुपुर शर्मा हो, नवीन जिंदल हो, चाहे और लोगों पर, चाहे मुस्लिम भी हो, उन पर FIR हुई है ना, उनको अरेस्ट करके जेल भेज देना चाहिए। ये सारी चीज़ जो वायलेशन हो रहा है, सारा जितना भी यहाँ पर मारधाड़ चल रही है और लोग इकट्ठा हो रहा है, होएगा नहीं।
लेकिन ये पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट तो बिल्कुल नहीं था।
नहीं, पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट था इसमें।
जैसे रांची और प्रयागराज में स्टोन पेल्टिंग क्यों हो रहा था? अगर ये एक पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट था तो स्टोन पेल्टिंग क्यों हो रहा था?
जो
अगर गुस्सा
कर रहे हैं ना,
दो व्यक्तियों के खिलाफ है तो पुलिस के ऊपर या प्रॉपर्टी डैमेज करके पुलिस के ऊपर स्टोन पेल्टिंग क्यों हो रहा था?
वायलेंस को बिल्कुल भी जस्टिफाई नहीं कर सकता कोई भी, मैं भी नहीं, चाहे कोई भी कम्युनिटी से ताल्लुक नहीं कर सकता। लेकिन मैं जिस तरीके से कह रहा हूँ, दिल्ली पुलिस को जल्द से जल्द नुपुर शर्मा को अरेस्ट करना चाहिए। ये भावनाएं भड़क रही हैं इस चीज से। अरेस्ट कर आप जेल भेज देंगे तो मामला शांत हो जाएगा, ये कुछ नहीं होगा। लेकिन ये सरकार को भी सोचना पड़ेगा, चाहे हमारे होम मिनिस्टर हो या फिर प्रधानमंत्री, उनको ट्वीट कर कहना पड़ेगा कि जिस तरीके से और कंट्रियों का दबाव आ रहा है, हमारा हिंदुस्तान का नाम खराब किया जा रहा है कि और कंट्रियों में कि जिस तरीके इन पे कोई एक्शन ही नहीं हो रहा है। FIR से क्या हो रहा है? FIR से कुछ नहीं होगा। हम चाह रहे हैं इसको जल्द से अरेस्ट किया जाए, नुपुर शर्मा को और नवीन जिंदल को, और जो लोगों पर FIR, जो देश में भड़काने का काम कर रहे हैं, सेंटीमेंट हट कर रहे हैं लोगों का, उनको अरेस्ट करके जेल भेजना चाहिए।
एक चीज तो बताना पड़ेगा कि this protest that has happened a full 2 weeks after, entire 2 weeks later. बिलाल भाई
जी,
एक फ्राइडे तो बीच में आया ही था, नुपुर शर्मा के कमेंट के बाद एक फ्राइडे तो आया ही था। उस फ्राइडे को क्यों नहीं हुआ? 2 हफ्ते बाद क्यों हुआ है? ऐसा लगता है कि जो ऐसा लगता है, मैं सिर्फ आई एम प्लेइंग द डेविल्स एडवोकेट, मेरा काम है सिर्फ सवाल पूछना, और मैं ये सवाल कर रहा हूं कि ऐसा लगता है कि ये जो प्रोटेस्ट हुआ है आज, ये सारा जो इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी में इस्लामिक रिपब्लिक्स ने जो ऑब्जेक्शंस उन्होंने जो रखा था इंडिया के सामने, उसके बाद ही हुआ है, इसलिए टूल किट लगता है ये सब।
नहीं, ये इससे पहले भी प्रोटेस्ट हुए हैं, वो ऐसा हाईलाइट नहीं किए गए। जुमे की नमाज के बाद जब ये सब 7 दिन 10 दिन पहले जिस तरीके से नुपुर शर्मा ने हमारे नबी के खिलाफ गुस्ताखी, कुछ ऐसे वर्ड्स इस्तेमाल किए जिनको हमें बोलना भी गुस्ताखी में आते हैं वो लोग, सेंटीमेंट हट किए मुसलमान, लेकिन उसको हम लोगों ने पीसफुल तरीके से किया। अब पूरे देश से, पूरी दुनिया से जो आवाज़ उठ रही है, उसके बावजूद क्या हमारे हिंदुस्तान से आवाज़ क्यों नहीं उठनी चाहिए? ये नमाज के बाद जो कॉल दिया गया था, कुछ इलाकों में गया था, हमारे इलाके ओखला के अंदर भी ऐसी चीज़ हुई थी, लेकिन उसको हमने कर दिया कि हमें पुलिस प्रशासन पर पूरा भरोसा है। हम चाहते हैं कि कानूनी तरीके से नुपुर शर्मा को, नवीन जिंदल और चाहे जिन पे FIR हुई है, उनको जेल भेजेंगे।
Okay, so Bilal Khan says suspending Nupur Sharma is not enough. That's what these protests are about. Syed, what would you like to say about what's happened? You've heard what Monica and Bilal have said.
Shiv, let me take a stand on your show that I stand with all peaceful protests, but I do not stand with any violent form of protest. Let me take this opportunity and condemn all those who involve themselves in violence. That is certainly what Islam teaches you, and neither the community is supposed to do that. Also, as a matter of fact, the panelist Monica ji mentioned about the PFI. Let me take a stand, Shiv, and you will be proud of the fact that I tell you today, I think it is high time that the Popular Front of India, the SDPI, the Campus Front of India must and should be banned. The fact of the matter is, this is the hypocrisy and duplicity of the BJP. Over the last 8 years, they are in power and they have still not been able to ban. Every time a spokesperson comes, every time BJP leaders say that we will ban them, we will ban. But why isn't the BJP banning them? How many more innocent lives do you want people to lose? How many more violent protests? How many more of funding? Many of the PFI guys are found to be a part of ISIS. Terrorism, NIA has named them, but why is BJP mum about it? Shiv, the fact of the matter is, like the way BJP or the blames that PFI is polarizing, this polarization of votes is actually helping the Bharatiya Janata Party. Through your channel, through the 5 Live show, through you, Shiv Aroor, let me address the fact and tell you as an Indian Muslim, it is high time that the Popular Front of India needs to be banned.
Syed, you're taking a stand. Syed, I appreciate that you're taking a stand that is very specific and not sidestepping the issue. Monica, you've heard what Bilal has said. You've heard what Syed has said. He has said, take the bull by the horns. But there is also hypocrisy as far as the BJP is concerned. I'll come to the PFI later. Monica, first respond to what Bilal has said. He says these protests are spontaneous and this is about
I also said BJP
rejecting
politics. All that.
And Bilal is also rejecting just the suspension of Nupur. He says that action needs to be taken. He says, stop all this whitewash. She should be arrested. Monica.
I think, yeah. So I'm responding to Bilal. I think Bilal bhai, एक बात समझनी बहुत जरूरी है यहाँ. He is trying to justify the veto of street violence because I'll tell you why. See, the FIR has already been filed and there's a due process of law. It is not the only FIR that has been filed, and Nupur Sharma and Naveen Jindal are not the only people who are facing an FIR. Sabha Naqvi has also been named, Owaisi have also been named in the FIR, and they are also responsible for Hindu-phobic comments.
FIR is not a solution.
Let her finish. Let her finish.
Bilal bhai, aap mujhe complete karne de, please.
Bilal, you'll have time. Don't worry.
You know how many, if these protests are organic, how many protests have been taken out by the different temple associations, by Mathadish? How many Hindus are on the street today? 15 दिन हो गए हैं. In last 15 दिनों में, how many Hindus have we actually seen on the streets and doing this kind of, street violence, stone pelting, or, all these kind of activities? Why do we only see one particular community doing all this? And, मेरा request है Bilal भाई से, जब already FIR file हो गया है, थोड़ा patience रखिए, due process of law को unfold होने दीजिए, because this FIR is not only on Nupur Sharma, it's not only on Naveen Jindal, it has also been against people who've been sharing very Hindu music and Hindu-phobic content.
There's no FIRs against Mahua Maitra though. No FIR against Mahua Maitra, let me add, of the Trinamool.
Bilal भाई कंप्लीट करने दे प्लीज. मैं यही कहना चाहूंगी आपसे कि किसी भी तरह का प्रोटेस्ट जो है, any kind of protest can turn violent, because all of us are responsible citizens of this country, and all of us believe in the constitution, all of us believe in the judicial process of law. If she indeed committed a gustaki in Nabi's Shan, then obviously, the judiciary will definitely take care of it. Because luckily, we are in a democratic country and everything has got a due process of law which can be followed. And
Bilal भाई, ये तो substantive चीज है. जो मोनिका ने बोला ये ठीक है. Can you disagree with what she is saying, Bilal?
No, I'm not disagree with that.
कि FIRs register हो चुके हैं. दिल्ली में, मुंबई में भी FIRs register हो चुके हैं. लगातार complaints book हो रहे हैं नुपुर शर्मा और नवीन जिंदल के खिलाफ, और होने भी चाहिए. Is the general view, based on the sections under which they have been booked. She says that you cannot have protests that have turned violent, that have endangered people's lives, where blood has flowed, where property has been damaged, without allowing due process of the law. She's been booked.
सबसे शुरू में मैंने यही कहा था, वायलेंस को बिल्कुल भी जस्टिफाई नहीं किया जा सकता. पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट का हमारा राइट है, कर सकते हैं हम. भारत का संविधान हमें इसको इजाज़त देता है कि हम पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट करें. और मैं ये कहना चाहूँगा, चाहे हमारे हिंदू भाइयों के देवी देवता हों, चाहे हमारे रसूल हों, या हमारे जितने भी मानने वाले हैं, हम खुदा को, अपने नबी को, अल्लाह को, उसके बारे में कोई भी अपशब्द या सेंटिमेंट हर्ट करने की जो बात करता है, उस पर FIR करके जेल भेजेंगे, जिससे चाहे आपके भी सेंटिमेंट हर्ट ना हो, ना हमारे हों. जिस तरीके से आज बवाल हो रहा है, FIR से काम नहीं चलेगा. मैम, मैं आपको बता दे रहा हूँ, FIR एक प्रोसीजर है. मैं मानता हूँ, मैं आई एम ऑल्सो एडवोकेट, मुझे मालूम है सारे प्रोसीजर. लेकिन जिस तरीके से माहौल किया जा रहा है, इसमें अरेस्टिंग हो सकती है. कोई इतना बोले, दिल्ली पुलिस ने आज जिस तरीके से CAA को लेकर हुआ था, 2 दिन में अरेस्ट हुआ, 2.5-3 साल से लोग अंदर हैं. उन्होंने भी जिस तरीके से बयानबाजी करी थी, तो उनको भी तो जेल भेजने का काम किया है. अभी तक उनकी जो है जमानत, बेल भी नहीं मिली उन लोगों को. ये तो इतना बड़ा मामला, पूरी दुनिया से आवाज उठ रही है, लेकिन नुपुर शर्मा और जिंदल को अभी तक अरेस्ट नहीं किया. चाहे ओवैसी हो, और भी लोगों पे कल भी FIR हुई है ना, उनको भी अंदर भेजना चाहिए. मैं किसी को सपोर्ट नहीं करता, चाहे वो मेरे हिंदू भाई हो.
Can I come in?
Yeah. You want to respond to that, Syed? Go ahead. Yeah, add to that.
Yes. Yeah. Shiv, the fact of the matter, we need to understand here that no side, Let us come out in the open and Indian first and condemn all those people who do violent protests and also those in the name of celebration take guns along with them in the rally. Who in the right mind will carry kattas and guns, country-made pistols? Absolutely uncalled for. Also, as a matter of fact, in the case of Nupur Sharma, it is different. She highly indulged in the blasphemy of the Prophet, which is not okay. I consider Imam-e-Hind to Lord Sri Ram, respect him from the words of Allama Iqbal. I quote when I go to events, I quote from the Bhagavad Gita. This is the respect that we Muslim brothers and Hindu brothers need to. But this person from the BJP comes out and makes such blasphemous statement that is not okay.
Okay, I don't want to debate on. I
don't heard the sentiments of the people.
Yeah, Syed, just for the sake of, because we don't have too much time, I don't want to debate Nupur's remarks. There is a due process being followed, and the three of us agree with that. But Syed, the specific question I want to ask you is, there is a view, and this is not a loaded question. There is a view among a large section. I don't know the quantity or the number of people, but there is a general sense by many, at least a section of the public in India, that this is an organized backlash against India, against the BJP, and that the crowds we've seen today have basically taken strength after all the Islamic nations have come out against the BJP and India. What do you think? What is your view? Is there a toolkit element in all of this?
I will answer you, Shiv. And I've been on your shows, and when I take a stand. The fact of the matter, when I heard the MEA Secretary, Mr. Arindam Bagchi, where he said the government of India does not stand with the BJP spokesperson's views or statements, I'm very glad. Also, as a matter of fact, the Indian envoys were summoned by Qatar, Oman, Iran, and they handled it diplomatically. And that is the way it should go. India must have the right relations with all Gulf countries, Arab nations. The fact of the matter, now we speak of the protest. Let me tell you, Shiv, there must be an investigation. If there has been any form of planned conspiracy, those conspirators must be put behind bars. Because if the government of India in its constitution gives us right to only a peaceful protest and not a violent protest, to me, as I believe, as an Indian, as a Muslim, our Prophet speaks of Hubbul Watan. Live for your country, love for your country, die for your country. So we need to follow the Prophet's words and protest peacefully, not in any other manner. That is the last word of the Quran and in fact the Constitution as well. The way to go ahead in a democracy, ek jamhuriyat mein, peaceful protest is the way to go.
And I'm glad that everyone is calling for peaceful protests, but the point is that things have calmed down in some places. There are still protests raging in other places, but in many places they've been far from peaceful. There have been extremely inflammatory sloganeering. Effigies of Nupur Sharma have been burnt. There's been vehicle damage. There has been torching of property, stone pelting, lathi charge. All kinds of things. This is, any semblance of this being a peaceful protest had gone straight out of the window. That can, of course, happen when there are such large numbers, but the questions need to be asked. And as Syed said, an investigation needs to happen over whether there are entities with, vested interests like the Popular Front of India, Campus Front of India, etc., having been involved like they were recently, allegedly, in the Kanpur protest. Stay with me, Bilal, Monica, Syed. We've got some breaking news coming in now from Ranchi. Okay, things are definitely escalating to the point now that curfew has had to be imposed in Jharkhand state capital of Ranchi. This is a place which has seen very, very hectic action. There has been stone pelting there. There has been lathi charges in this particular area. Curfew to be imposed in Ranchi, the state capital of Jharkhand. All of the images coming in from Ranchi have been some of the most intense, the most violent. There has been arson. We've seen some vehicles on fire, a lot of stone pelting as well. Satyajit Kumar is joining us live from Ranchi. Satyajit, क्या अपडेट है? कर्फ्यू इम्पोज होने वाला है रांची में?
No, DC Ranchi has specifically, categorically said that curfew will be imposed, but in a particular pocket, in this pocket, in the main road pocket. Actually, these are the points that flashed some violence, that triggered violence. This is the Masjid area, and after that, the Hanuman Mandir area was seen disturbed after the protesters went on rampage. They burned the effigy of Nupur Sharma, and they were irked over the statement, controversial statement by Nupur Sharma. They were protesting. All of a sudden, violence broke out, and it was reported that the protesters were asking the shopkeepers to close down their shops. Those who abided to the diktats of the protester were not done any damage, but those who defied the diktats of protesters were taken to task. Motorbikes were set ablaze. After that, brick batting took place, and the protesters also resorted to stone pelting. You can see the senior police officials are camping here in this particular area, the Ekra Masjid area. You can see the IG standing right in front of me. After that, the SP Rural, he is camping here. Police officials and massive force have been deployed. DC has said categorically, Chavi Ranjan, that curfew will be clamped. In which particular, under which police stations, it will be informed to the media, and they have asked, they have disseminated a message, loud and clear message, to refrain from rumor mongering and to abstain from the hate mongering, rumor mongering. This is what DC has said, but curfew will be clamped, that is for sure.
Satyajit, take care of yourself. Stay safe, my friend, because clearly that situation, is not calm just yet. If the police is having to impose curfew, Monica, bringing you in back on this, curfew having to be imposed in a state capital, that's how bad this is. Monica.
Yes, definitely, Shiv. I think it. Just now Bilal Bhai was saying about protests that, until unless she is not arrested, there are going to be protests. But this is what exactly I was pointing out, that, once there are so many people out in the streets protesting, you cannot prevent them from turning violent, because religion, like Mark said, is opium of the masses. And if, it just needs a spark to start a fire. And unfortunately, in the times that we are living, instead of focusing on more positive things, we have Jharkhand's capital facing a curfew over something which already, it has been a matter in the court of law. So I think this is absolutely unfortunate. And this is why I request through your channel that, everyone who believes in the due process of law, kindly head back to your homes, because, you are, by damaging the property, it's ultimately your country's own property. So let's not just do it.
Syed, I mean, curfew having to be imposed in a state capital, takes this out of the realm of just another protest into a law and order, security situation. We all know that curfew is not imposed lightly, and for curfew to be imposed in certain areas, I want to clarify this, like Satyajit just told us, Syed, having to be imposed in certain disturbed parts of Ranchi, in many ways means the situation has gone well beyond what was expected.
Certainly, Shiv, the fact of the matter, we need to understand that the true Indian, who loves this soil we are born from, will never indulge in such an activity. The fact of the matter, the government of India, the law and order, the police must and should have taken an immediate action against Nupur Sharma, formed the arrest, started the investigation, go to the courts, go to the magistrate accordingly. These people waited for 14 days. I can see they've been seething with anger, and we know the result. There is a quote from the Mahabharata which says, anger is the purest emotion. But this emotion needs to be subdued by taking a strong law and order action against Nupur Sharma. It is high time that the government of India, the law and order, the police force must act, must jail, arrest.
But that's due process, Syed. Syed, surely that's due process, right? That's due process of the law. It can't be, it can't be a kangaroo court on Nupur Sharma, can it?
Yes, Shiv, this happened after 14 days. The fact of the matter, the people waited for 14 days, Shiv, for 2 weeks, even after such blasphemous things were said about the Prophet. But still no action. Now I truly think there must be absolutely no violence. There must be an action taken.
I'm not going to indulge in whataboutery because we are all friends here. But, a huge section of the public, you're aware of this, Bilal, Monica and Syed, that there are ruling party individuals in states like the Trinamool Congress or others who have said insulting things about the Shivling. No action has been taken against them. You will not see the kind of huge protests that you're now seeing about the Prophet. I am not going to sit here and make a whataboutery point about that. But I just want to tell all of our viewers who may have that sentiment that there is a difference in this kind of anger. Why is there no anger? Why are there no huge crowds in the streets about that as well? We've recently seen FIRs being registered against certain senior journalists for their intemperate remarks about the Shivling. But 2 weeks after a remark about the Prophet, this is the kind of rage and action that we're seeing on the streets of India. There has been latent anger. No one can dismiss that. But what is this element of a toolkit that results in a curfew in parts of one of India's state capitals is a question we all need to consider very, very carefully. Are we going to be so foolish to see this as black and white? That this is all organic, spontaneous outrage by large crowds here? Take a look at this video from Ranchi that India Today reported first, that really describes, and listen hard to what you're going to see in this video from Ranchi, and it will make sense why curfew is being imposed.
सर सर पत्थर चल रहा है सर, हमको कमर में लगा, मेरा मोबाइल टूट गया सर, जल्दी से सर देखिए, अभी पत्थर चला रहा था सर, फोर्स भेज दीजिए सर, फोर्स भेज दीजिए। देखिए देखिए पत्थर चला रहा, देखिए देखिए, आप इधर आ जाइए, आप इधर आ जाइए, इधर आ जाइए, छिप जाइए, इधर आ जाइए सर, सर पत्थर चल रहा है सर, हमको कमर में लगा, मेरा मोबाइल टूट गया सर, जल्दी से सर देखिए, अभी पत्थर चला रहा था सर, फोर्स भेज दीजिए सर, फोर्स भेज दीजिए। देखिए देखिए पत्थर चला रहा, देखिए देखिए, आप इधर आ जाइए, आप इधर आ जाइए, इधर आ जाइए, छिप जाइए, इधर आ जाइए सर, सर पत्थर चल रहा है सर, हमको कमर में लगा, मेरा मोबाइल टूट गया सर, जल्दी से सर देखिए, अभी पत्थर चला रहा था सर, फोर्स भेज दीजिए सर, फोर्स भेज दीजिए। देखिए देखिए पत्थर चला रहा, देखिए देखिए, आप इधर आ जाइए, आप इधर आ जाइए, इधर आ जाइए, छिप जाइए, इधर आ जाइए सर, सर पत्थर चल रहा है सर, हमको कमर में लगा, मेरा मोबाइल टूट गया सर, जल्दी से सर देखिए, अभी पत्थर चला रहा था सर, फोर्स भेज दीजिए सर, फोर्स भेज दीजिए। देखिए देखिए पत्थर चला रहा, देखिए।
This is a truly disturbing piece of footage that we on India Today have access to. It's a video that's been shot, from the security forces side. They appear to be overwhelmed by stone pelters. Bilal bhai, आप कुछ बोलना चाहेंगे इस वीडियो क्लिप के बारे में? इससे बिल्कुल साफ साबित होता है कि ये एक लॉ एंड ऑर्डर सिचुएशन बन चुका है और इसलिए रांची में अभी कर्फ्यू जारी होगा कुछ इलाकों में।
बिल्कुल, इसको बिल्कुल भी बर्दाश्त नहीं किया जा सकता। जिस तरीके से मैंने ये वीडियो देखी, एक पुलिस वाले की आवाज़ सुनी, उसको इतना डर लगा, उसके बैग पर जो पत्थर लगाया उससे उसने अपना एहसास जाहिर किया है। ये बिल्कुल भी, मैं खुद कह रहा हूँ कि वायलेंस का बिल्कुल भी सपोर्ट नहीं करते। हम नहीं करेंगे सपोर्ट ना किसी भी चीज़ में, लेकिन जिस तरीके से ये माहौल मचाने की साजिश कर रही है तो लॉ एंड ऑर्डर की सिचुएशन सरकार को समझना होगा। जुमे की नमाज़ के बाद कुछ लोगों ने वहाँ पर कॉल दिया था, उन लोगों को भी आप लोगों को सर्च करना पड़ेगा, ये कौन लोग थे जो ये जुमे की नमाज़ के बाद, आपको मालूम है जुमे की नमाज़ में कितने लोग होते हैं, हज़ारों लोग होते हैं, इकट्ठा होते हैं, नमाज़ पढ़ते हैं जुमे की नमाज़, उसके बाद कॉल देने का लॉ एंड ऑर्डर की सिचुएशन सरकार को देखना चाहिए। जब इतना बड़ा मामला चल रहा है, पूरी दुनिया से आवाज़ उठ रही है, तो सरकार की कहाँ सो रही थी? जो सिचुएशन है उसको एसपी को देखना चाहिए, वहाँ पे एसएसपी को, डीएम को, सबको डायरेक्शन लेना चाहिए कौन लोग हैं। अब ये कर्फ्यू का जो है, कर्फ्यू लगना चाहिए। ये हाल देख रहे हैं हम लोग, ये ऐसे डे बाई डे यहाँ पर बहुत बुरा हाल होने वाला है। अभी तक जो लोग यहाँ पर जो आइडेंटिफाई हो रहे हैं उनको जेल भी भेजना चाहिए। जो पत्थर चला रहे हैं, जो मासूम लोगों, उसके बीच में ऐसा नहीं है कि ये लोग पुलिस वालों को मार रहे हैं। मासूम लोग जो बीच में चल रहे हैं, उनके किसी के पत्थर लगा, उनको कितना डैमेज होगा, कितना मतलब दर्द की बात है ये। मैं वीडियो देखकर मुझे खुशी नहीं है, मुझे बहुत दर्द हो रहा है ये वीडियो देखकर। ये विजुअल दिख रहे हैं, आपस में लड़ रहे हैं, पुलिस खींच रही है, ये कर रही तमाशा। तो सरकार को सोचना चाहिए कि नुपुर शर्मा को इतना क्यों बचा रहे हैं आप? जो उसने हमारे नबी के गुस्ताखी की है उसको जेल भेजने का काम करें, चाहे होम मिनिस्टर को इसमें, चाहे देश के प्रधानमंत्री देख रहे हैं, सारे देश में आग लगी पड़ी है, चाहे वो सारी चीजों को देखना पड़ेगा। और मैं सुनिए एक सेकंड, एक प्लीज, जिस तरीके से पिछले टाइम पे धर्म संसद चलाया गया, जो भड़काऊ हेट स्पीचेस सुनिए।
लेकिन दिस कैन नॉट बी द वे टू कॉल फॉर समवन्स अरेस्ट। आई एम सॉरी, ये तरीका तो बिल्कुल नहीं हो सकता है in a country of law and order. You can't be burning down places, stone pelting. अगर ये जो एंगर था दो लोगों के खिलाफ था, तो स्टोन पेल्टिंग क्यों चल रहा है?
बिल्कुल नहीं होना चाहिए. आई एम अगेंस्ट. हमेशा मैंने ये कहा है कि बिल्कुल भी ये सब चीजें नहीं होना चाहिए. मसला ये है कि जिस तरीके से लोगों पे हेट स्पीचेस दिए जा रहे हैं, चाहे बीजेपी के कितने बड़े बड़े लीडर हैं, वो हेट स्पीचेस देके धर्म संसद चलाया जाता है. धर्म संसद के नाम पे वो वहाँ पर नबी के लिए गुस्ताखियां करते हैं. वहाँ पर गांधी जो हमारे देश के राष्ट्रीय पिता हैं, उन तक को नहीं छोड़ते हैं. उनके ऊपर हेट स्पीचेस, उन पर कोई एक्शन नहीं होता है. इसलिए तो ऐसे लोगों की हिम्मत बढ़ गई, चैनल पर आकर कुछ भी बोल देंगे.
India Today's reporters are the only reporters in this country who don't take sides and report the facts. And I can tell you that being on the ground in all of these locations, including in Ranchi, we are only reporting the facts. That's the reason why we have opinion from all sides. But I want to send out a message that India cannot be divided on these lines by vested interests. I think Syed made an amazing point when he said an investigation needs to happen, because we need to differentiate as Indians between innocents who are being manipulated, who are being incited, and those with vested interests who are using a section of the population as cannon fodder to make a larger political point. The fact is, Nupur Sharma's comments may have been the trigger, but as Indians, we are staring at a situation that is deteriorating before our eyes. At least 16 locations across the country have seen tension. Law and order situation in all 16 of these places spread across at least 9 states. Injuries have taken place. Arrests will take place. Property has been damaged. And curfew is about to be imposed in at least one city and in some localities of one state capital in the country. That's how bad this situation has gotten. The big questions for the government will also have to be asked. How did they miss something like this? Is there something they can do? Is there something they could have done to stop what's going on? I'll get last comments. Okay, I'm out of time now, but I'm going to leave you with these pictures. Bilal, thank you. Syed, thank you. Monica, thank you. Let's hope that things become a little bit more peaceful. There can be some kind of dialogue. There can be action against those who've indulged in violence. Let's be very clear. Legitimate, peaceful protests are okay. Violence is not. And if there was a toolkit, if there was a call to violence, if there was organized outrage that has resulted in injuries to Indian citizens, then there must be no mercy for those people as well. Thanks very much for watching. We're going to leave you with these pictures. It's India's biggest story, and India Today remains on top of it.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com or call 9999892171.
Is Russian President Putin's life under a time clock? Well, according to Russian intelligence, Putin has only 2 to 3 more years to live. He is suffering from a severe form of rapid cancer. The Federal Security Service also said Putin is losing his eyesight and suffering from severe headaches. The FSB officials said that when appearing on TV, Putin needs everything written on a huge paper. He said, and I quote, "They are so big each page can only hold a couple of sentences. His eyesight is seriously worsening and his limbs are now shaking uncontrollably." The concerns about Putin's health are rising as he left many meetings for medical treatment. But amid these speculations about Putin's worsening health, Russian officials have a different story to tell. Russia's Foreign Ministry Sergei Lavrov denied these rumors about Putin's health. He said, and I quote, "I don't think that sane people can see in this person signs of some kind of illness or ailment." Many Russian newspapers also deny that Putin is suffering from cancer. But the UK intelligence claims Putin has rapid mood swings. They say that he trusts no one and is furious with his subordinates. Does Putin's illness change anything for the Russia-Ukraine war? It's been 4 months since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Russians have captured several areas of Ukraine. Meanwhile, many soldiers have lost their lives and many Ukrainian civilians remain displaced.
And there's more breaking news coming in after hours of violence in different parts of the country. West Bengal Governor Jagdeep Dhankar has sought an urgent report from the Chief Secretary of Bengal by 10 p.m. over the worsening law and order situation in the state since yesterday, following BJP spokesperson Nupur Sharma's prophet remark 2 weeks ago. Situation in different parts of the country has been deteriorating, but things are stable at this point. We'll get you an update on the other side of this very short break. India's top story: big protests by the Muslim community in at least 16 sites of India.
In December 2021, a chopper crashed near Tamil Nadu's Kunnur. It killed all 13 on board, including Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat and his wife Madhulika Rawat. Since then, the position has been vacant. Army Chief General M.M. Naravne then took over some of the responsibilities of the CDS as Chairman of the Chiefs of Staff Committee. 6 months have passed and the centre has amended the rules of Defence Forces for the appointment of the next Chief of Defence Staff. The Chief of Defence Staff, or the CDS, is the military head and chairman of the Chiefs of Staff Committee of the Indian Armed Forces. It is the highest ranking officer in the Indian military. It is also the chief military advisor to the Minister of Defence and heads the Department of Military Affairs. Bipin Rawat was the first CDS officer. He took office on January 1st, 2020 until his death. The position was created with the aim of improving coordination, tri-service effectiveness of Army, Navy and Air Force, and overall integration of the combat capabilities of the Indian Armed Forces. The centre has amended rules for the selection of CDS. According to the new rules, those who have retired as 3 or 4-star officials will be considered for the role. The government has put an age limit of 62 years, and since service chiefs retire at the age of 62, recently retired chiefs of services won't be considered. It opens the field of potential candidates because the government can look beyond serving officers. This leaves room for questions given that the serving chiefs who are 4-star officers will have to report to a retired 3-star officer if named as CDS. Will they be elevated to senior positions? This can be a possibility since General Bipin